that you learned about your team this weekend that you did not know about them previously?
Oh, wow. You got a trick question right off the bat. I don't know. I think we continue to play pretty solid baseball. I think the good news is, we've shown that we can do a lot of things, pretty well. We pitch it pretty well. We swing it pretty well. We play pretty good defense. We even run the bases pretty well and stolen some bases. Again, I've said it, a ton in a lot of the post games. There are certain games where some of those areas, I thought we, came up short in, and there's more in the tank, and we can be better in those areas. But overall, I don't know if there's any large deficiency where you go, wow, what are we going to do about this? And so to this point, I'm proud of the way we've played. But certainly, think that we can play better than we have.
Yeah, a 10-1 start. Your program is no stranger to having good starts to seasons, for sure. In your experience, what is the best way to keep a team full of college baseball players humble through really successful early starts in a season?
I don't think it's as much humble as it is to stay focused and stay, in the moment. I know that's what you probably mean, but I don't think it's getting a big head or, hey, you got ranked and so all of a sudden we think we're good. And I think it's human nature to, look for something else to do, right? And to get distracted and, hey, I've done this for a few weeks and now, you take a weekend off because you're looking forward to conference play. And so that's really, I think, it's not just in baseball, not just in sports, but in life in general, right? Can you show up every single day and be super consistent? The people that do that in whatever, area, seem to be really successful. And so that's what we try to challenge these kids with every day.
Yeah, your ace, Hunter Elliott, off to a really good start, which is not surprising considering his history, but spending 24 months without getting a start because of injury. As his coach, from the psychological side of it, what did you do with him to kind of keep him in his spirits up without being able to play baseball for such a long time?
Well, you're right. And that's a tough thing, and I don't know if we did much. I mean, you got to give Hunter a ton of credit because it's been a long road for him. But I know when he started getting back on the mound, this summer leading into the fall, we thought the fall was super important for him to compete, for him to get back out on the mound, and we weren't worried about health wise. Everybody kept saying, "Hey, how's Hunter Elliott doing? How's his elbow? How's that?" His injury and the throwing protocol, a lot of that takes care of itself. But what it doesn't take care of is being out there and competing. And I thought this fall was super important for him to get out there, and it wasn't always pretty for him. There were some outings that I'm sure he would have liked to have back, but he grinded through, and I think put himself in a really good position to start the season. And I don't know if any of us foresaw that he'd get through the first 3 weeks and not give up a run. Even your best ace healthy, I don't know if you think that. So a lot of credit goes to him and the way he's handled things.
You, in your opening season press conference, talked about making the adjustment with a new pitching coach and what your role is as the head coach and the manager of your team with this new dynamic. What have you learned about yourself in this time, not calling pitches and that being somebody else's responsibility now?
Well, there's no doubt it's freed me up. I feel more comfortable, throughout the week, doing what I think I'm supposed to do and handle the meetings that I'm supposed to handle, and, to manage the entire program where, I think the past few years I've really felt it, certainly because we haven't had success. But when you don't have success, you just kind of you dive into it more, and I think it's taken me away. But I've had a great relationship with Coach Mangrum, and it's and trying to find a niche with him, to be able to sit down on game days in the morning with him, and then have another meeting with Mike Clement, our hitting coach, and just talk about the pregame kind of filling out the lineup card, but beyond that, what's the game plan, and trying to stay true to that. There's going to be in-game adjustments and being able to communicate with both of those guys throughout the game, but then also to be able to give feedback and make those adjustments. I think we all have done a great job with that, and I don't mean me necessarily, but us as a staff, and so I'm happy with it.
You've got a young hitter who is jinx-proof, by the way. Federico, I have talked about all week last week going into the series that, hey, he hasn't struck out yet. He's a young hitter, hasn't struck out yet, and spent another weekend not doing so. So I'm comfortable saying that to you because he's jinx-proof. But what's your thoughts on this young hitter? Looks much older than he actually is with his plate discipline and things like that.
Well, one is, in these interviews, the media, sometimes, catches a lot of crap from coaches and stuff. I didn't know he hadn't struck out yet. How about that one? I didn't realize that. So I learned something tonight. But I think when you look at Fed, he's a coach's kid, and he knows the game so well. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily easier for him, but he's been around it so long, and I've listened to some of his interviews, and you watch the way he handles himself, in the dugout, in the locker room. He's a ball player, and again, we're excited that he's off to a great start. I don't know if anybody thought that 3 weeks in he'd be hitting 500, but I don't think it's a surprise, the way he's handled himself. I think all of us thought that he'd be able to handle it well.
You've got a pair of catchers, and both of them play, and you DH one some as well. What is the decision like for you, because they're both capable players, on how you decide who plays and when and how much? How do you balance that?
It's a good question, and I don't know if there's there's an algorithm to it. But we want to make sure that they both get enough reps. Some of it is, to be honest, to make sure that they have success. So sometimes, it's a righty-lefty matchup. Sometimes it's to make sure that they catch different pitchers, so we don't get to a point and say, hey, listen, Smithwick's never caught Maddox, or, Foley's never caught Elliott. Being conscious of that. And then sometimes it's to put them in tougher situations, offensively and so on. So you're right. They're both very capable. I think we feel very comfortable, in whatever situations those guys are going to be. And so, again, it's nothing super specific. We'll continue to play both of them.
Do you have an internal timeline that you want to reach where you want to kind of like iron down a more solid everyday lineup, or are you comfortable in this spot where you're moving guys around a little bit and you don't just have 9 guys that play for you? It's more than that.
Well, it's a great question, and the truth is, we always focus on, hey, we'd like to have a lot of the questions answered by the time you start conference play. So that's about 10 days from now. But sometimes it's not, and then sometimes, you're going to try some different lineups. It's baseball, and some guys can be hot, and 10 days from now, maybe they're not swinging as well, and same with pitchers. But the good news is we've played a lot of people to this point, and most of them have gotten off to pretty good starts, both on the mound and the position players as well. And so we'll continue to do that, and I think that's a really good thing. So I'm really happy, with the depth that we've showed, and not all the position players have gotten off to a great start, but the depth that we showed position player wise and on the mound, and guys starting to develop roles, and you watch even on Sunday for Morris to kind of get extended and to throw 3 innings and then go to BJ and then Spencer. Those were about as dominant of 5 innings of pitched ball that we've ever had here. There might have been one fastball thrown under 95 miles an hour, and it was super dominant. So, a lot of those pieces are starting to fall into place.
Are you having to keep Walker Hooks away from Pete Golding to make sure that Pete doesn't try to get him to play on the defensive line for him?
Yeah, and just as much Judd Utermark. So we don't need him on the offensive side to be the tight end. But both of them very physical guys, but both of them really good baseball players.
Coach, we appreciate your time.